Clack the Geek here, and welcome back for definite now to the concluding part of my Inside No.9 retrospective look back series, where we're going to be yet again taking a look at Series 6 of the show from everybody's favourite year, 2021. But if you recall, give or take about 18 months ago, I did my contemporary review of Series 6 when it came out back in May and June of 2021, which is a time I'd not really like to remember. That Inside No.9 Series 6 very much got me. It was like the final home stretch to normality after the pandemic, pretty much. That's how it was for me. So in a way, I do hold quite a soft spot for Series 6, but I remember at the time being quite positive on it, and I think a lot of that was also down to kind of recency bias, and it was my first series of the show that I watched live, so there was kind of some excitement. So it's very interesting now looking back and comparing my old opinions to what I now think, and to be honest, now that the hype has died down, and now that we've had the fantastic Series 7, that's in a way showed Series 6 up for, yeah, it's really not the best series. I still really like it, I still love every season of No.9, but it's, objectively speaking, probably the weakest series of the entire show. I would only say I prefer it to Series 1 purely because of, you know, nostalgia. If you take that away, then it's definitely the weakest. The series honestly just feels very paint by numbers and something that you would expect from, say, the first series. But with that series, it has an excuse because they are finding their feet. Here, we're 6 series in, and it just feels like we're seeing, for the most part, the same things kind of done over again. And it doesn't feel very original and daring. And I think it really took me until Series 7 to realise how kind of inferior this season was in particular, because Series 7 is very wild and out there and really experimental, whereas Series 6 isn't. And obviously you have to respect that this series was made at the height of the pandemic. You know, you couldn't go all out in the same sense, but I think because of that, I think you can kind of tell, especially looking back, you can kind of tell in comparison to what came before and after. I think another reason that maybe I was a bit more positive on it back then was because it was the most recent series. You don't want to really accept the fact that, oh, could the show be going downhill? Like, this is technically the worst of the series, and could it be going downhill? But then Series 7 and also Bones of St. Nicholas, that Christmas special, they came along and were their phenomenal selves. So it's kind of put those worries to rest, but Series 6 really ain't great. I should say that I don't dislike the series. I think there are some amazing episodes. One of them would be my top 5 of the entire show. I think that the episode that I'm talking about here has had a massive kind of legacy since this series is broadcast. And I think that's what's really interesting of looking back at a series I've already covered. Like, looking back on not only how my opinions have changed in whatever way they have, because they have, not drastically, but they have, but also looking at the legacy that the series have left, and, you know, why certain episodes are remembered fondly and why others aren't. I think it's really interesting. So let's get to it for the final time. So beginning the series, we have WUTHERING HEIST, which is obviously the first episode of the show I watched live. But if this is somebody's introduction to the show, may God have mercy on them, because this is one of the weirdest ways to start out a series. But I kind of dig it, and you know what? I actually like it more now. Now, this story, as said in some of the fourth wall breaking dialogue, it's a mix between Commedia dell'arte and a heist movie. Commedia dell'arte is a form of performance with like masks used, and it kind of portrays generic sort of character archetypes mixed with a heist movie. And very obviously, the main influence for this is Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs, which, since this series was first broadcast, I have seen the film, and it's become one of my new favourites. I did a video analysis on it. I adore the thing. And a lot of the plot points in Reservoir Dogs are very much felt in here. It's in a warehouse. It's a group of, robbers who want to get these diamonds and whatnot. You don't actually see the robbery take place. You see the aftermath. There's a mole they're trying to rat out. It ends in a shootout. A lot of the plot points from Reservoir Dogs you can feel here. And now that I get the references, I think I just appreciate the story even more. And there's also some other really good references. Like, there's a reference to the Italian Job with the, you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off line. There's a reference to that in this, which is really funny, as I've since seen that now. It's such a zany, bonkers episode. Even for No.9 standards, it's really bonkers. And it's, the fact that it embraces that, I think, is what I really love about this episode. And it makes it very rewatchable. The comedy overall is great. The Scaramouche joke never ceased to, have me in stitches laughing. There's some great like innuendo and physical comedy, and just the overall unpredictability of it. It feels very improvisational, maybe because they're using a performance technique of, Camille dell'arte. The fact they're using that, it feels improvisational, so it has that unpredictability where, just these random things will happen, and it just takes you so off guard that you have no choice but to laugh, and it just, I don't know, it's just so out there and bonkers. And I get this isn't to everybody's taste, but this is what I wanted more from this series. Just really, it's really out there and experimental, this episode, and I really love it for that. The episode looks really nice, especially with that green lighting. The music is quite kind of chirpy and quirky, but I think really works. The characters are really fun. Gemma Whelan's character, breaking the fourth wall, that's really fun, and something new for number 9, kind of, I don't know. Actually, no, because that was in Zanzibar. Oh, never mind. I think it's more overtly breaking the fourth wall here. They mention the script, and it is pretty funny, the fourth wall jokes. I think it's quite unique for number 9. And the other characters are endearing. I mean, the subplot that whole joke is really quite amusing. And the twist as well is, I don't think even I fully get the twist, to be honest. And if somebody wants to explain it to me in the comments, feel free to. But I just love how unpredictable and daring this episode is, and it's what I wanted more from the series, to be honest. And it's well out of number 9's comfort zone, but that's why I love it. So 8.5 out of 10. It's actually gotten better for me on a rewatch. That's why I'm really liking coming back to this series. Obviously this one I've seen its reference points, so I get kind of the jokes more, and I really like that. It's one of number 9's most underrated, in my opinion. I don't get the hate for this one personally. Episode 2 now, Simon Says, which is my favourite of this season easily, and for me, a top 5 episode of the entire show. I adore this one. And this is going to sound really weird. I have a weird kind of like sick, twisted enjoyment of it. It feels like I'm not meant to enjoy it nearly as much as I do, but I don't know. I mean, maybe it's because I'm a massive Doctor Who fan, and the whole Doctor Who fandom has, in recent years, obviously been quite divisive and polarised, and a lot of fandoms, obviously this episode takes cues from the whole Game of Thrones, the crap ending, the disappointing ending for the fans, and people wanted it to be remade, like remake the last season, like people made petitions and whatnot, and that kind of, the kind of fan entitlement that I think has been seen in recent years, with like the advent of social media. I think this is what, I don't know, I really clicked with this episode. But obviously you've got Spencer, played by Pemberton, who's the writer of this fantasy show, The Ninth Circle, which had a very disappointing ending, and fans want it brought back, and this fan, Simon, played by Shearsmith, with the help of another fan called Gavin, they kind of basically blackmail him into trying to bring the show back. And the element, Stephen Reese are very in touch with fan culture. There's like shipping, stanning, fan fiction, podcasts, all that stuff, and it's very in touch, and very in touch of how fans can kind of read very deep into these things that probably the creators didn't think, like they didn't think that it would become, these popular franchises. They didn't expect them to be as big as they were, but it's really in touch in that regard. You've got Shearsmith giving this really sly, creepy performance as this entitled fan who thinks he owns the show, and he thinks it's all his as well. But then the episode also depicts fans in a positive light, with the character of Gavin, who is very loving and creative, and wants to share his fan fiction and wants things signed and whatnot because he cares. And it's important to not just paint fans of things as just these creepy people like Simon, because these kind of shows can bring out a hell of a lot of creativity and love and passion and skill and talent, out of people, whether it is like arts and performing or writing or whatever, it brings out a lot of great skill. And also, it's also important to point out that Spencer, he's no angel either. He's a bit of an arsehole as well. He's a bit, very egotistical and very protective of his work, and then eventually he kind of just steals Gavin's fan fiction script and, pass it off as his own, and the series is back and everyone loves it and whatnot, and it's like he gets all the credit, and it's a bit, he's no angel either. I think that's just what makes it really interesting. I think it's a really well-made episode. It's very simple, kind of traditional number 9, it's in a flat, but it works wonders. There's that claustrophobia present, the music, that kind of almost fantasy score to, emulate the kind of score that you would see on The Ninth Circle. It's really great. The seduction scene, what I'm talking about, And, you know, when Spencer suffocates Simon, that's creepy. It's so weird, but it's like, oh man, this is... Yeah, it's so effective. As I said, the performances are fantastic from all the cast. I mean, and the final line, let's just say I did it for the fans, that gives me chills every single time. Oh yeah, and when they like murder people with the award trophies, that was kind of... It's dark and it's grim, but also kind of weirdly funny in a very statistic way. But I think overall, like, what I think has really elevated this episode for me, and what has elevated it to my top 5 of all of the show, is the impact that it's had. It's very much had a lasting legacy. Like, I saw recently for the Bones of St. Nicholas, like the marketing for that, there was an interview with Stephen Rees, and they were answering questions, and one of them was, how would you deal with a fan situation like in Simon Says? And to me, it kind of does show the impact that this episode has. It's had a real legacy, you know, since its broadcast nearly 2 years ago, and it's become, you know, one of those kind of tentpole episodes like Tom and Jerry, like 12 Days of Christine, like Riddle of the Sphinx. You know, it's become one of those cult classics, so I'm going to give this one a 10. I think it's absolutely incredible and just one that I will always connect with. Lip Service for me is arguably the most overrated episode of the entire show. It seems to be that this is the most beloved of this season, the one that's seen as the best, and I don't really see it, although I have picked up on a lot of things that I do like about this story. For instance, the filmmaking is excellent. I love how the filmmaking often tells the story, in the sense, like, for example, in that great phone call scene, the shots of Steve's face with this blue lighting surrounding him, that kind of... It's the only instance of that you see in the episode, and it conveys the sorrow of the crushing realisation that his wife has well and truly dumped him, and it's that kind of realisation. And then later on in that scene, you have Steve sitting on the bed, and it's a bit of a wide shot, so he, the subject, is very small and lonely and insignificant. Then Iris comes to sit with him, and it transitions, you know, gradually transitions, without cutting, into like a medium close-up shot, and it's that more intimate, you know, it's this sense of intimacy that's developed, and the comfort and the hope that maybe with Iris he'll find a new lease of life, and that optimism, and it's just great. My film studies brain went into overdrive with these scenes. I do really like the core story of the episode of Steve's character Felix trying to get over the splitting, you know, the divorce. Well, no, it's not divorce, but it's the splitting up with his partner, and this kind of having to move on in that sense, and it's... I really like that, and Steve's performance conveys that so well. I've always said that Pemberton is a fantastic performer, an underrated performer at that, and this is a top 3 performance of the entire show for me. It's one of his absolute best, in my opinion. I also really like Iris. I think Sean Clifford gives a great performance of her, and there's a certain quirkiness and awkwardness and oddness about her that I just think she fits really perfectly into number 9. I also really like the setting of the episode in the hotel room. It's an unfamiliar yet normal setting. You know, it's not the most extravagant setting, but it is unfamiliar, and it does create that awkwardness and that kind of creepiness of the unknown that I think number 9 really excels at, without being too overt about it. You know, you've got these kind of nasty things, like, you know, you've got people... Yeah, people can be a bit weird in hotel rooms, and yeah, the episode doesn't shy away from that. I do really like that setting. Oh, and that phone call scene where Iris is basically talking, you know, obviously she's a lip reader, she's basically saying the bit of the conversation on the other end of the phone, sorry. That is so clever and so well done and so creative, and I really like it. It very much takes influence from Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window, but yeah. But now I'm going to start getting into the negatives, and the reason I don't like this episode is kind of all the other bits that are attached to the episode that just... I'm not massive on. Like, there's Reese's character, he's the hotel manager, this kind of Basil Fawlty-esque character, and it's quite farcical, and he's not overly intrusive, but I feel like he does somewhat intrude on the story, and I feel like any more it would have definitely felt very invasive on the story. I also don't fully buy the blossoming relationship between Felix and Iris here. Now, obviously, the twist does explain this away as to why it's not as genuine, and also the filmmaking and the acting that surround it, I think make me not hang up on it too much. I don't get too hung up on it, because everything else surrounding it I think can excuse it, but I think definitely on first viewing I definitely wasn't convinced with this kind of blossoming romance. But then we get to the twist, which
I do not really care for. I really don't think it's well built up to. Now, this episode clearly wants to be, you know, to kind of take cues from Rear Window, but let me tell you something that Alfred Hitchcock once said in order to build suspense. You must let the audience have information. Otherwise, you know, the difference between suspense and shock is that's what makes the difference. You know, giving the audience information helps build suspense and helps build to an effective twist in the climax. This doesn't really. It's just that all of a sudden in the last 5 minutes becomes this political assassination intrigue story, and it just doesn't work when we don't have the context of it all. It feels very underdeveloped and purely there for shock value, and I always felt that this episode just didn't properly land, and that's why it just comes out of nowhere. And yes, there are little hints, like, you know, she opens the window so the bullet hole doesn't crack the window. I get the hints, but it's the sense that we don't know practically anything, and for a kind of spy espionage intrigue story like that, you need to have it develop more, and it just having it from the perspective of not from this organization, it just doesn't work in my opinion. So that's why I think the episode falters in a way. So I'm going to give this one a 7.5 out of 10. It's definitely got some great elements, but everything surrounding those core great elements, not a fan of personally. Hurry Up and Wait is one of the oddest episodes that this show has ever given us, without trying to be, I think. The reason I'm confused on what I even think of this episode is because I don't know how to view it. Do I view it as, you know, an awkward comedy, a slow burn mystery, a meta satire on like actors and the TV industry? I don't know, because you could look at it in one way and think, that's really clever. You could look at it another way and think, that really doesn't work. So let's just talk about it more in depth, shall we? So the setting of this episode in the caravan, which is like the green room from this TV production on this like ITV drama about a disappearance of this baby 20 years ago, and it's filmed in the same location as that actual crime happened, in the context of the episode, not in real life. But yeah, I really like the setting of the caravan, and I remember when this series was being made, and there was an image of Stephen Reese, which was the first glimpse that we got of this series, and it was them in the field, and I was thinking, oh, Inside No.9 outside? But no, it is mostly in the caravan, and you know, it's a great setting. It's uncomfortable, it's cramped, especially when you go to the back of a caravan like that, and the doors practically bang against each other because there's no room. It's it's another one of those awkward, claustrophobic situations without being overt about it, and I really like that. I do think some of the humour works, especially from the performances, you know, like Pauline McGlynn, she's really funny as this, nagging mother. Donna Preston as Bev, she's really kind of weird, but in a great way. It's almost like League of Gentlemen-esque weird, like these kind of odd characters. And it's also really funny seeing Adrian Dunbar playing a kind of more diva-ish version of himself, and at the time when this was broadcast, like Line of Duty had just ended, so he was very well known. So, and he's, you know, playing another kind of detective kind of character. So it's really interesting looking at this in the context of how very much of its time it was. I don't know, I just found that really interesting. Not all the humour works, so sometimes when it's the awkward humour, when it just results to awkward silences, it just sort of, you don't really know what to feel. It's not particularly funny. And then there's some jokes that just don't land at all. Like, there's some really unnatural jokes. There's one when, I think Jo who's the annoying runner, she says, oh, I know it's a bit cramped in here, to the owner's face, to the caravan owner's face. I don't think you would say that to their face. Like, that just doesn't seem natural at all. Then you've got the whole mystery of what could have possibly happened to Baby Ryan, and maybe this family know what's happened, or maybe Bev is Baby Ryan grown up, because you have Reese's character, James, who is playing a police officer in this ITV drama, and he's got like a little bit part, and he's reading the script, and there's like little clues of what may have happened back then, and he's trying to connect them to this family, and like there's like a red tracksuit, shaving cream, Bev calls herself a tomboy, and it feels like it's really clutching at straws. These clues are really they're not great clues that you would latch onto. It just doesn't feel real and genuine, and it just feels like they're clutching at straws. However, you could read that as a kind of satire and method acting and getting too much into character. And for as little as a role that James ends up playing in the actual thing, you know, he plays such a little part, but he gets so invested in this that it's kind of hilarious and like really funny. But
I don't know whether that was the intention, or whether the intention was to create this kind of mystery plotline, and that's why I don't know what to think of this episode. It's such an odd one. And then you've got the twist, which has been subject to mockery ever since this was broadcast, with the twist that baby Ryan was mistaken by Bev when she was a kid for a doll, and like she took him, and like basically he's died over time, and there's that it's like he's like a doll, and there's like the rotting skeleton hand, which is such a bad effect that it is hilarious, but unintentionally so. And it's just, I don't know. I remember at the time not being sure what the twist actually was, but yeah, it's an odd one, this episode, and I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's definitely gone down in my estimation, I think, but yeah, I'm not sure what to make of it properly. Ultimate episode, How Do You Plead? A classic kind of horror number 9 episode, and what a brilliant episode. It's not perfect, but it is genuinely excellent. So the episode is about this retired defence lawyer, played by Sir Jack Jacobi, in a returning guest role. He's the only guest actor to have come back for a role, because he was in The Devil of Christmas as a voiceover role, but here he is in the flesh. And he plays this defence lawyer who managed to get criminals off the hook for years, and he's got kind of a shady past. But he's in ill health, and he's been nursed by a character called Urban, played by Shearsmith, and he's also had a kind of traumatic past that is what has led him into nursing. And I love the main focus of the episode being about exploring these two characters and their shady pasts and what's got them where they are now. And it's really interesting in how they what they've tried to done to cope with that. Urban, very much, he wants to be he's using his career as nursing to atone for that past, but Webster, he's almost doesn't want to face it. He wants to run away from it. Similar to how his inevitable death, he doesn't want to face that either. And it's just really interesting how they explore that. I think this is very much elevated by the rapport that Shearsmith and Jacobi have. It's a great rapport that they have, and it helps explore the characters really well through their great dynamic. And some of the the shouty sweariness and the shock of what Jacobi can come out with, it's really fun. It's a great bit of dark humour, and obviously the horror element. I think it's actually a really creepy episode in a very simple way, I think, because a lot of it takes place in the actual bedroom, which is kind of a place of safety and comfort, but in the other room is where a lot of the horror happens. You've got the dream where of an old school peer of Shearsmith's, Carl Jackson, choking on the tangerine. You've got that takes place in the other room. And it's also where the lift is, where Steve's character, who turns out to be the devil, that's where he is. So it's like the danger just lies so close to where the characters are. And it taps into a weird childhood fear that it kind of subconsciously scares me, that. And it's really effective, I think. I have to give props to the direction from Guillermo Morales, who did a fantastic job with depicting this horror, and the way he... the way he manages to frame it, and, as I say, the sense of geography of where the danger is in relation to our characters, and I think that's a great bit of direction. And also the music as well from Christian Henson. It's really sinister, the violins, but it's also, in a way, quite sort of melancholy as well. It conveys a fair bit, and it's really effective. And the twist as well is really quite shocking. The ending is very effective and intense and whatnot. But if I had a critique of the episode, it would be the whole supernatural element of Steve's demon character coming in. And I need to look into more of the context of who he actually is. I haven't looked into it properly yet. But the thing is, I think for it to properly be developed, it needs to be a 45-minute episode as opposed to half an hour. And I know number 9 is just half an hour episodes, but I think with that kind of thing, because it's brought in relatively late in the game, I think it needed to have a bit more time to fully develop and to properly have the impact that it could have done. But that's a really small critique. Honestly, it is a really effective episode, so I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. And now we have the finale, which is by far the least popular episode of the entire show, Last Night of the Proms, which... my opinion has changed. Out of all these episodes, all these 6 episodes, this is the one that my opinion has changed on the most since that original video. This episode sits in my bottom 5 of the entire show. It's one of its weakest. This episode very much goes for political satire, which for the finale is very odd. Like, why is this not the horror finale? Like, How Do You Plead would have made much more sense to the finale. But, I don't, I respect number 9 for trying to do something different. This is the first time that they ever really did sort of political satire as overtly as this. And you know what? I think some of it is actually really clever and really does work. I think mainly the guise of British patriotism through the use of, like, the proms, that kind of those concerts, the music is very patriotic, and the family having the party, they've got the bunting, they've got the flags, they've got the food out on the table, and, like, they're going to have a party about it, and it really covers up their issues, like, it covers up their marriage issues, Reese is very much a snob, and he's about the music, but he's also just really dismissive of his own wife, and he's very disconnected from her, and both of them are their relationship is kind of fracturing. Their son, it's having detrimental effects on him. And also, I think the moment that typifies this idea really well the best is when the dementia-suffering granddad, played by Julian Glover, who I've met, which is great, and it's great to see him still acting, Bond villain, Doctor Who villain, Indiana Jones villain, Star Wars, great. But yeah, it's when, the dementia-suffering granddad, he stands up and starts singing Rule Britannia and can remember the lyrics. The fact that he can remember the lyrics to something so deeply rooted in British patriotism, but then, it kind of covers up the whole issue of he's suffering from dementia. I think that's a really, really great bit of satire and a very, very interesting way of, talking about this kind of issue of, patriotism and the detrimental effects that it can have. And if you just sort of literally waving the flags about, and yeah. I also think the madcap energy that the actors give, I think really helps with the satirical element of it, and it makes it kind of humorous. I think that adds to it a bit. So that's really good. And, I'm somebody who loves to take the mick out of British politics. I think it's so easy to just poke fun of, and I do love doing it. So that's why I'm probably kinda to this episode, because of these humorous moments. I really like that. But then when it starts to go on about, like, immigration, and it's like that's really heavy-handed on its whole point of being a satire of, like, Brexit and whatnot. And I love taking the mick out of Brexit. I love doing that, but it's really on the nose with that sort of stuff. And then later in the episode, when you have the guy who they think is the second coming of Jesus, and there's, like, all these coincidences that, oh my God, it's absolutely ridiculous, and it's a low point of number 9. It's genuinely embarrassing to watch that sequence where he gets killed, and his arms out like a cross, and they wrap him up in the English flag. It's embarrassing to sit through, and I don't think this series would have been nearly as looked down upon if it hadn't have ended with this. Why was this the finale? Because this is the taste that is left in people's mouths for 10 months. Friggin' Jesus showing up. Jesus Christ, it's Jesus Christ. Now, this next point I'm going to make, do take it with a pinch of salt, because the source is very much from IMDb, and I know IMDb can be edited, but I recall in the build-up to this series, and pretty much until, like, before How Do You Plead had been broadcast, I think, it was like, when they announced the next week's episode, I think How Do You Plead was meant to be the episode 6, the finale, and this was meant to be episode 5, but then it got switched around on IMDb, but that's how it was listed on IMDb, and now, as I say, take it with a pinch of salt. But it makes a hell of a lot more sense that How Do You Plead was meant to be the finale instead of this. This just doesn't work as the finale. I mean, I know it's the horror tradition, but, like, why would you end the series with this? And I have a possible theory. You see, on the day that How Do You Plead was broadcast, or supposedly this was originally meant to be broadcast, Inside No.9, they won a BAFTA for... I think Series 5 it would have been, yeah. So they won a BAFTA on the day that How Do You Plead was broadcast. Now, could it possibly be that the schedules were swapped around because, obviously, when you get a BAFTA, there's the hype, there's the promotion, it's basically free promotion of there's a new episode, and people would check that out. But maybe the BBC weren't happy with this episode, so they swapped it so they see How Do You Plead instead. I mean, I might be clutching at straws here, take it with all the pinch of salt, but this episode just baffles me to no end, so... yeah, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It's bordered on a 6. It's one of number 9's low points. So yeah, that is truly the end of my number 9 retrospective series. So I've just got my little ranking here. I've got Last Night at the Proms, dead last, and I've got Simon Says as the crowning jewel of the season. Now, yeah, this is definitely, in hindsight, one of the weaker seasons, and I think it took me till Series 7 to fully accept that this wasn't the best of the best, and, but that's in this retrospective series. I'm so proud of these videos, and I hope you've enjoyed them. And, you know, get ready for when I cover Series 8, which I believe is coming out soon. They've started promoting it with like some teaser pictures and whatnot. And so Series 8, and then the inevitable Series 9, which I believe will be the last series of the show. So we're in the end game now. I'm Clack the Geek, and thank you for watching.